This is the Depth Mystic Community Podcast, episode 24. And with me, as always, Jungian Depth Mystic Zach Tollen. How are you this week? Well, it's been a long week, but I'm doing pretty good. And we've got an episode to make, so let's do it. Okay. I only have two real topics in mind for this week. The first is taking notice of the time of the year. This time period between Christmas and New Year's. And I'm wondering if you have any thoughts about that. Haha. Yes, of course. We're in the interlude. It's that moment before you recover where you kind of blank out a little bit. I always think that the week after Christmas and before New Year's is like that moment. It's a space where consciousness kind of disappears for a while. And people feel it. They just sort of act like it. Nobody has yet named this week, this interlude. So I don't know if other people feel it as specifically as I do. Well, that's a good name for it, I think. The interlude. That's a good name. Maybe people's consciousness only focuses on yang elements or bright elements, things they want to think about. And the periods when there's no activity or they need to disappear into the darkness, they don't think about very often. I guess so, but somebody must have noticed that this week was like that and at some point thought, hey, why don't we have a name for this week? And maybe somebody does have a name for it, but if they don't, I'm offering the first possibility. I'm calling it the interlude. You don't necessarily have big plans for the interlude. Because of its nature, you don't really need to ask people, so what are you doing for the interlude? I mean, it's precisely the time period when people tend not to have big plans. Anyway, what's the interlude? And this is the episode for that time period. So what other question do you have? Oh, well, this question is, honestly, it's kind of a big question, but I think we have to start trying to answer it. What is the earthly role of a depth mystic? If somebody such as yourself gets initiated into the knowledge of the spirit world and then comes back to Earth, what are we supposed to expect from that person? Oh, that's a great question. I've been trying to answer that question for maybe my whole life, but especially in the last 7 years when I have felt as if I really have come back from this initiatory experience as this other thing, a fully trained Jedi Knight. And you've asked the critical question, if I'm going to say that I'm a something, a depth mystic, if I'm going to come up with a new term for it, what am I referring to? What can you expect from the point of view of society? That's a huge question. I don't even think we'll be able to answer it completely in one episode. Because it's the whole thing. Well, yeah, you're right. This is just a way of phrasing one of the overall main themes of this podcast. We're trying to figure out what is a depth mystic. Identifying the roles of the depth mystic. So, what do you think those roles are? Yeah, I've spent a ton of time thinking about this. And one of the things I think I'm really good at is interacting with neurotic or mentally ill people. And this traces back to the old shamans of the pre-civilization era, who were the world's first doctors. And they were also fully initiated mystics like myself. Maybe not in this current society, but they were fully initiated in their culture. But I think they play a very similar role to what I should play. And one of the major things they did was encounter people and help them heal their consciousness. And there's a lot of dynamics to that process, but I think that's one of the big roles. Okay, I think I understand what you're saying about the old witch doctors playing a specific role even in those ancient societies, those pre-ancient societies. And so I can see how that would be one important function of somebody who says what you say and claims to be what you claim to be. Yeah, dealing with people one-on-one. In those old days, they didn't even have civilization. They didn't have architecture or hierarchical social structure. They didn't have class-based society. They just had themselves. They still had mental illness, though. They still had people dealing with their psychological situation. The psyche of humankind has been a problem for humankind even before the days of civilization. And so that would be the first thing a depth mystic would be capable of, that we might expect them to do. That's a good start. Just acknowledging that a fully trained mystic of your kind is very much akin to the fully trained shamans of the pre-civilized world. That's a really good beginning of a description of what you mean when you talk about depth mysticism. I mean, I guess I also want to be kind of an artist. I have impulses that I haven't fully activated for art that gives expression to my worldview. The reason I haven't fully activated them is because I don't quite know what I need to build. But I do think an artist is a kind of mystic. An artist is one of the things you might be able to expect from a depth mystic. And now art, of course, requires craftsmanship. And the material craftsmanship of people in civilization is superior to that of people without civilization. The access to tools and resources and everything. So when we talk about the artist, we're moving a little bit into the realm of how would a shaman appear in civilization? What would it look like? And a lot of them would appear as artists. It's generalized healing processes. Great art is not in interaction with another person in a psychotherapeutic relationship, but in interaction with the artist's own idea of what would heal people. So I also want to be an artist. I'm definitely less confident in how to do that precisely. It's kind of why we had to make a podcast rather than me just going straight to being an artist, because I didn't really know how to do that. Okay, I understand that. So is there anything else? What are the other roles that we can expect a depth mystic to play in the world? One thing I thought about is a philosopher. Whether you call it a spiritual teacher or a writer of essays, however the philosopher expresses himself, basically he has a bunch of thoughts, and one of the things you can expect from a depth mystic is for him to convey those thoughts. My favorite living, and maybe the only other living depth mystic, is named Peter Kingsley. And his main mode of expression is the books that he writes. Just as an example, there's a book called A Story Waiting to Pierce You. A Story Waiting to Pierce You. And if you get that book by Peter Kingsley and you read it, you'll see one of the things you can expect from like a true depth mystic. And you could call that different things, but I'm using the generic term philosopher to describe what he's doing. He's a person with a mind who is coming to conclusions and expressing them with words. Okay, well, that's a pretty broad definition of a philosopher, but I guess I understand what you mean. Some people, like Ralph Waldo Emerson, he wrote essays, and then Joseph Campbell also wrote books, and several other people we call depth mystics. They wrote books. I mean, that was one of their main ways, if not the main way, for them to actualize what they thought in the world. So to summarize, we have healer, artist, and philosopher. And as a philosopher, I guess you included spiritual teacher. So you can imagine a philosopher with a large number of students, at least hypothetically. Yeah, I guess that's a pretty good way of describing what we might normally expect from a depth mystic. I don't want to say depth mystics can't do anything else, but if you need an idea, there you go. Okay. That's good enough for now. That'll do it for episode 24. I hope everybody has a happy interlude week, and we'll see you in the new year.